Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk. Back again with you guys for your third episode of the day. It's been a crazy day of news and Arsenal stuff. And we're back doing another episode of our tactical breakdown series, but a very different kind of episode. If you are new to the show, typically our tactical breakdown episodes are a dedicated show on one Arsenal transfer target. Earlier on we did one on Onana, we've done on Lokonga, we've done on Zanderberg, we've done it on Ruben Neves, we've done it on Tosin Adarabioyo, Anderson. So many players so far have been covered. You can find them all on the channel. It's in a specific playlist as well if you want to see them all and run them back to back. And with these shows, as I say, they're typically based around Arsenal transfer targets. But this specific show is more based around a guy that could get plenty more Arsenal transfer targets were he to join the club. Now, the guy we're talking about today is Luis Campos, who is the former director of football, I suppose, at Lille, and of course has worked previously at Monaco and Real Madrid prior to that as well under Jose Mourinho. And he is someone that is very well known for making some very astute signings, selling exceptionally well to the point where he has made over €1 billion in transfer sales now. And the reports that came out this morning was that Luis Campos was linked with possible discussions with Arsenal. This came originally from Loic Tanzi, who is a reliable French journalist and someone that I would certainly have trust in, especially. Now, this was then picked up by, of course, the English media and Football London, and Chris Wheatley in particular tweeted out that the Football London had understood that the role of Luis Campos would not be to replace Edu and would be to work on an informal basis. This was then deleted by Chris Wheatley, who has then now tweeted out information that Arsenal have since distanced themselves from this. It doesn't mean that there's necessarily nothing to them. It just means that for the moment, Arsenal have distanced themselves from necessarily the flat-out words of discussions taking place. But we do know that Arsenal like to do things behind the scenes. We do know that they have denied things in the past that have then happened. But it is interesting to see the amount of conflicting reports, even within the same media outlet, around Luis Campos. So what we will still do is we will break down who Campos is, what he is about, what he could do, where he might fit in, and whether he would work at Arsenal. And to do that, I've drafted in the help, of course, of a French football expert, the only French football expert who is allowed on this channel in Jeremy Smith. Of course, you may know him from all of our previous shows focusing on French Football League transfer targets, but he knows his stuff about Lille, of course, and so he's going to tell us all about Luis Campos and who this guy is.
So the latest person linked with Arsenal is this time not a player, but a kind of, I don't know what to call him, chief scout, recruiter, technical director, sporting director by the name of Luis Campos. And I sort of joked to Tom earlier that if Arsenal were to bring him in, this would, for me, be probably Arsenal's best signing since Pires in, I think, 2000 maybe. This really could be huge, like a game changer for Arsenal, or basically for whatever club Luis Campos eventually joins. This is the guy, to kind of put it into context. PSG, since bringing in all their money and winning their first title in 2013, they've only lost 2 titles since then. That was to Monaco in 2017 and obviously Lille this season. And the man behind the sort of recruitment projects for both those teams happens to be Luis Campos. So that kind of gives you an idea of his pedigree. He originally was a manager sort of in the kind of lower leagues in Portugal, and sort of came to attention when his team beat Mourinho's Porto. He actually joined Mourinho at Real Madrid, and sort of during that time was also developing sort of algorithms and programs for improving his kind of recruitment process, and then gradually moved into just the recruitment side rather than the football management. From the French point of view, he kind of became a big name as he joined Monaco in 2013, stayed there for 3 years, and actually wasn't there when they won the league. But you know, that they basically pretty much the whole team that won the league was kind of the fruit of his recruitment. I'm not really sure the best way to do this other than to sort of go through the list of names that he brought in. And in some cases, they're not necessarily huge names or huge prices, but you can see that they helped win those two titles for Monaco and Lille. And in other cases, you can also see the sort of sell-on value. So, I mean, it's going to be a bit dry and statistical, but literally going year to year, like 2013-14, he brought in James Rodriguez for £40.5 million. He was sold at the end of the season for 67 million, so big profit there. Falcao, obviously the big name, Moutinho. These two aren't sort of great discoveries, but you know, it showed that he already had a good scouting network. Kondogbia he brought in for 18 million, sold him later on for 32 million. Martial brought him in from Lyon for only 4.5 million, sold him for 54 million. Then he also brought in the likes of Abadal, Carvalho and Berbatov on free transfers. So again, just good contacts. 2014-15, he brought in Bernardo Silva for 14 million, sold him later for 45 million. Bakayoko for 7 million, sold him for 36 million. 2015-16, Fabinho, who was kind of rotting away in the Real Madrid reserves, 5.4 million, sold him obviously to Liverpool for 40 million. Lemar, only 3.6 million from Caen, sold him for 64 million. And as I said, you know, Silva, Bakayoko, Fabinho, Lemar, Moutinho, Falcao, this kind of formed the bedrock of the Monaco team that not only beat PSG, but got to the Champions League semi-finals and played amongst the best football in Europe at the time. So, you know, clearly knows what he's doing. Then on to Lille, 2017-18, brought in Pepe for 16 million and, as you know, sold him for 72. Thiago Mendes, 8 million, sold him for 19. Balotelli came in for 3, sold him for 9 million. Boubakary Soumaré, free transfer. He's going to go this summer probably to Leicester for about 25 million. 18-19, Jonathan Ikone, 4 million. When he leaves, it will be for a huge profit. Celik, brought him in for 2 million. I did a video for you earlier this week saying how he's going to go for more. Bamba on a free, he's going to go for more. Jose Font, a free transfer. Okay, no sell-on value probably, but crucial to Lille winning the league this year. Rafael Leao, free transfer, 26 million sale. Bissouma, he wasn't responsible for bringing him in, but helped sell him for 15 million, which shows his kind of negotiation skills as well. 18-19, Victor Osimhen, brought him in for 20 million, sold him for 63 million. Renato Sanchez, 18 million. He could well go for more after sort of resurrecting his career at Lille. Yazici, 15 million, 2 Europa League hat-tricks, including one against Milan later. He's surely got a sell-on value. Benjamin Andre, 6 million. Again, not a huge sell-on value, but absolutely integral to Lille's title this year. Reynildo, 2 million, has come on leaps and bounds this year and will definitely go for a big profit. And then this year, obviously not selling yet, but Jonathan David, 24 million, surely going to go for more. Sven Botman, 7 million, absolute bargain, probably better than Gabriel, who he replaced. And, you know, in a way, the most impressive one of all, because generally we're talking about him discovering very young players, but Burak Yilmaz, 35-year-old supposed journeyman, brought him in for free, and frankly, he should have been named Ligue 1 Player of the Season this year. Absolutely integral to Lille winning the league. And of course, as you know, although he didn't bring in Gabriel, helped sell him for 23 million. So this is the kind of pedigree we're dealing with. Someone who's got great scouting network across Europe, great algorithms, whatever they are, that are clearly very effective. Huge amount of work ethic and traveling. Apparently 1 year he did enough air miles to take him to the moon. So real quality there. In terms of what it means for the rest of Arsenal's staff, like Edu, people like that, to be completely honest, I don't know. It's difficult to gauge exactly how Campos has been employed by those clubs. He changes titles from technical director to sporting director to chief of recruitment. It's not very clear. Is he actually an employee of the club, or is he an employee of his company, Scoutly, and the clubs use Scoutly on a sort of freelance basis? It's really unclear. I'm not saying it's dodgy or anything. I'm just saying that it's not obvious how it works, and possibly there's scope for sort of different ways to do the deal there, especially if Arsenal don't want to get rid of the people who are in place at the moment. But if there's an opportunity to bring him in, Arsenal should be going absolutely all out for it, because he's shown over several years now that he's one of the canniest people in the business in terms of spotting fantastic youth, really good deals for older players, and whether it's in order to challenge for titles or to make huge profits or a bit of both, then Campos really is your man.
A massive thank you to Jeremy for that in-depth insight into what Luis Campos has done since going to Lille. Of course, previously to that, he did some amazing work at Monaco as well. He's just been able to continually find these young gems, replace players that have left, and get players in that are ultimately going to improve that squad and then be sold on for a huge amount of value. And it's obviously people like that within football are very, very hard to come by these days. And whilst there are certain clubs that do very well in terms of selling and buying, you look at like the Red Bull clubs in particular do really well at that. You look at Borussia Dortmund, they're very exceptional at the way that they buy in young talent and they sell them off, and they've done very well through that as well. I mean, even in England, you look at how Southampton previously brought in some really good talent and sold half of their squad to Liverpool, but have also seen players go off to other places. So there is a lot of clubs out there that do really well with their recruitment. Leicester City, of course, another massive one. And Arsenal have really kind of been left behind in this. And we think about Arsenal as a club that back in the early 2000s, late 90s, when Arsene Wenger came in, he was ahead of the curve. He found the way of getting these talents, bringing in his own kind of scouting system, was the first one to kind of look and use analytics and computer programming and like the online stuff, eventually bringing in stat DNA, etc. To get all this stuff. But the thing is, Arsenal have been outdated. Arsenal have been left behind with the recruitment, and their recruitment in the last decade has been absolutely horrific. If we, in comparison to the other teams around us, yes, we've brought in some decent players, but in comparison to our rivals, we have continually widened the gap between ourselves and those that we want to be competing with. And a lot of that has been down to the way that we've recruited and the way that we've sold so poorly, making losses on players, letting players go for nothing. Like Arsenal are in desperate need of bringing in a character, an individual, a visionary in the sense that of Luis Campos, whether it is him or someone else. Thank you, the Realjanis, for the donation, mate. Much appreciated. I'm glad you're all enjoying the content that we're pumping out for you guys every single day. But let's move on to the next part of the show, which is kind of looking at him in a little bit more detail. So let's see what he's actually said, first of all. And the last time he conducted an interview was, which I could find any, was back in March with RMC Sport, and seeing what he's done with them. So let me just throw onto that screen so we can see what's going to happen. Here we are. So in that interview with RMC Sport, he says, for several months, I have made the decision not to speak out, but certain speculation has pushed me to do so this Friday. For the record, my professional relationship with Gerard Lopez, who's the guy, the big man at Lille, is finished. It has been for several months already, and this matter is currently being managed by my lawyers. Yes, there are a number of rumors out there about my professional future, which is typical at this stage of the season, but I want to say very clearly that I have so far not made any decision at all about my professional future. This was, as I say, a few months ago now, and the rumors and the reports that have come out recently suggest that he is going to move on to somewhere, be that Arsenal, which seems less likely if you believe some of the reports that have come out in the last hour or so, at the time of recording, of course, or he could be going off to somewhere like Real Madrid. Nice were previously linked because it looks like Christophe Galtier, the former Lille coach who won the title last season, is going to be going there as well. So there was always that link to go to Nice and start a new project. In regards to where he would kind of fit in the Arsenal setup, it's important to kind of understand how Arsenal are laid out. Now, this is a very vague kind of description of how the club works. You've, of course, got Stan Kroenke at the top of the pile, the owner of KSE. His son, Josh, is who I consider to be kind of the main... really, I feel like Arsenal is a toy that he's given to his son at this stage in Josh Kroenke. And then you've got Tim Lewis, the guy at the top of the image, he's like a non-official executive that has had lots of already kind of a big impact in being part of the reason why Real's saying, yeah, he is no longer at the club. And he's a bit of a line between the club and KSE. You've then got Vinay Venkatesham, who is, of course, effectively our new Ivan Gazidis, the effective CEO of what's going on. After Raul left, he took on a lot of Raul's kind of responsibilities. And then below him, you've obviously got the main three, the first one being Edu. The next being a very new guy in Richard Garlick, who's taken on this head of football operations role. And then, of course, you've got Mikel Arteta. Now, if I'd have done this image a year ago, Mikel Arteta would have been below the likes of Edu. But because of the promotion he got from head coach to manager, he has become very much integrated into the recruitment side of the Arsenal business as well. And he is much more integrated than just being the head coach, which I do look back on as a bit of a mistake. And I think it was a bit of an early decision to do that. But that's the situation that we're in. So we're now in this situation where would Luis Campos fit in? Well, the previous reports, according to Football London, who said that they understood that any role that he was involved in would be an advisory, a consult, a bit of a consult in a way, and consultation process. It would be an unofficial, but then they have since redconned, I suppose is the right word to use that, and saying now that Arsenal have distanced themselves. If he was to be involved with Arsenal, I do very much think that it would be pretty much this kind of tie-in with Edu and Richard Garlick would suggest transfer targets for Arsenal to move for. But beyond that, I don't really see it being anything extra. I don't see it really going on to be replacing Edu at this stage. And I know that a lot of people looked at this and thought, maybe all those rumours about Edu being sacked are true. I still don't think they are. I think that's very far wide of the mark. But it is interesting that Arsenal are looking to extend their recruitment kind of personnel and get people in, and former directors of football and people that have been involved at clubs that have had great success. I think this is an encouraging sign. I think it should certainly be looked as an encouraging thing and not looked upon as a negative. So finally then, does it even make sense for Luis Campos to come to Arsenal? Now, it is important to look at things in the overall context of the club. Arsenal are a very, very different entity to Lille and to Monaco. They're not a club that you typically see players sign for, you develop, and then you sell them on for a profit. We used to do that back in the day. You think about Nazaries, Fabregas's, Van Persie's, Adebayor's, Gael Clichy's. We used to do it because we had to finance the stadium. Arsenal aren't in that situation anymore where they're a club that need to make money. But they are a club that have sold horrifically badly over such a long period of time now. And there is absolutely no doubt that Luis Campos coming in, were he hypothetically to come in, would improve the recruitment of the club. He can spot a very good player. But these players aren't huge marquee signings. Like, you look at the signings he made for Lille or Monaco, they're not your Thomas Partey's, they're not your Aubameyangs, they're not your Mesut Ozil, Alexis Sanchez type signings. They're more ironically, your Tierney, your Gabriel Magalhaes, your Martinellis, bringing through players like Smith Rowe from the academy. They're bringing in the young guys, your Mavropanos, your Sven Mislintat type signings. That's what he does. That's what he excels at. So for Arsenal fans, and we've been linked with players throughout this period, like Lokonga at Anderlecht, and people have gone, no, he's not good enough. I'm not having him. I've never heard of the guy. But yet we're desperate to see Luis Campos come in because he's great at identifying talent. But would Arsenal fans in general be open to seeing more gems coming or more prospective signings come in than players that are going to be immediate marquee signings? Now, me, 100%, I'd love us to go out there and sign players more smartly. I'd love Luis Campos to be part of the Arsenal hierarchy. I think it would be a great move for the club. One of the most important moves that we've made in a very long time, arguably. As Jeremy Smith said, the most important signing and the best signing Arsenal would make since Pires came in all those years ago. That's how highly rated this guy is. But there is an irony about it, that he does identify players and bring players in that aren't necessarily marquee. They aren't necessarily players that are going to do amazing stuff. I mean, you think about the signing of Jose Fonts, for instance, at Lille, how integral he has been there. If Arsenal signed Jose Fonts or something equivalent to that fact at Arsenal, can you imagine the reaction? So this is the thing, is if we are going to see the change in Arsenal's hierarchy and how we recruit players, how we bring players in, then you need to have more of an open mind to this. You need to really have more of an open mind to the possibility. I think that also comes down to players like Zanderberg, who is not my first choice in regards to a central midfield option. But because there is such an ingrained desire and desperate want to get Yves Bissouma, that someone like Zanderberg, who is a very decent player and has got a hell of a lot of potential, and at Genk really, really excelled and went to a very poor Premier League side in Sheffield United, and unfortunately has not been able to be used correctly there. He's been written off already. Absolutely so. People are saying he's trash, rubbish, not good enough, not Arsenal standard. Well, I guarantee you, if Luis Campos was the guy at Arsenal, he wouldn't be signing players that in your mind you're going, oh, wow, that yeah, amazing, marquee signing. I think sometimes we need to get our head out our backside sometimes as Arsenal fans and realise to improve our recruitment, it's got to come from a place that ultimately may not be what we've been used to. And that actually might be a good thing. That's what we need to think about. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat box. So we always like to finish off these shows with a bit of discussion. Doom and Gooner says, I think as a fan base, we used to love the uncovering of gems, but there was just too many fails. If we put the people in place to pull it off, I am all in on this. Manu Clerk says, Zanderberg is not the same thing, really, Tom. He is 35 million player. He's never going to be sold for 40 million. I do understand what you're saying there. But what I'm talking about specifically is the viewpoint of the player. It's the perception of the player, regardless of the price. It's just looking at him and seeing assessments of him as a player and just calling him rubbish and just saying he's not good enough. It's stuff like that that does get to me. But again, the price tag is exorbitant, and that's why he's certainly not one of my first picks to come into the club purely based upon that figure that's being quoted to us. Neil Gunner says, I'd take it 2 or 3 years if the owners don't want to invest, and I can see a future this way. Why not? Neil, it's admirable that you would say that, but I guarantee you, people aren't willing to wait 2 or 3 years. People aren't going to wait to see that. If it means that Arsenal move up from 8th to 7th across next season, but ultimately we see a fair few good players come in with a lot of potential, then there is always that potential that Arsenal could then explode and that the coiled spring could be let go of. But are people going to allow 2 to 3 years of change? Well, I mean, we've seen good players come in under Edu and Arteta. The results haven't yet improved, but the call for change is still ravenously huge. So I think we would struggle to see patience after all of this time. I really would. Canav says, what centre midfield right backs will get predictions? I'm watching your channel. Any other tips or book for the football analysis and journalism? I am excited about the cricket World Cup. Who are you supporting? I'm not a cricket man, I'm afraid, Canav. But in terms of kind of centre midfielders and right backs, Zeki Celik, who of course ironically was signed by Luis Campos at Lille, is someone that we can sign on a cheap deal. Around 15 million euros we're being quoted as, and that in itself is a very smart piece of business for me. And it's not just about finding hidden gems. I mean, the amount of people for me that just wrote off Ryan Bertrand as a possible signing for 2 years, that's part of it as well. And you heard Jeremy Swift talk about Luis Campos bringing in Jose Font, Andre as well, the Brazilian or French midfielder. I'm going to go with French. Midfielder who's obviously more experienced and has done very well since joining. So there's a lot to kind of look at with these talents and with the way that they sign players. And it's not all about finding the young guys. It's also about adding the experienced players that are going to make a difference in the team. That's what's really key. The Realjanis says Mislintat is not as good as Campos. That is certainly proven to be true with how he's made money at Lille and at Monaco. Kim B says, why sign him up to teach Edu and or Arteta? Why is Arsenal a job for experience? It's pathetic. I understand what you're saying. I don't think it's about training them. I think it's about consultation. Edu and Arteta have already identified some decent players that we brought in, and we just haven't seen the results on the pitch. And it's not been good enough from Arteta. Practically, his coaching has not been good enough. That's why we sit where we are. But actually, ironically, the way we've signed players has been pretty decent. You've only seen 1 or 2 really bad ones come in. Willian, of course, being the huge one, but Gabriel, Partey, Matt Ryan, Erdegaard have been decent. I mean, you even look at some of the more experienced signings that we've made in the past, like when David Luiz came in, all the hype around the mistake that was. It turned out to be not a bad piece of business. I certainly think he's paid back that money, but it's about the balance finding in the window that we need, and we just haven't made good decisions for so long now. Alexandra Lawson says, don't you think people are reluctant to have signings like Zanderberg because they've been disappointed by these types of players? I think the fact that we know more about his success, we would be more keen on that. I don't know. Zanderberg is not someone that we've had at the club. Like, he's not very similar to Granit Xhaka. He's very, very different to like Granit Xhaka. So I don't know if it's about, I don't think it's necessarily about that. And ironically, it would be about signing someone from a Premier League club that's you know, like a marquee figure in their team, and there's certainly someone they want to keep hold of, which is not something we've done. We've signed surplus players from Premier League clubs. That's what's interesting. Mud says patience is what's necessary. That and savvy business that's capable of both having a bigger budget than Lille would only help. Josh Hunter says non-gem players are the likes of Grealish, which we can't get. And we've brought in experience through the likes of Luiz and Willian, and it hasn't worked. It's about the balance, though, Josh. It's about identifying the right experience, the right type of players that are going to have the right impact on the team. And if you, a big shout out to from Dull Square to Where, because he recommended one of the tweets going and listening to Luis Campos' podcast, where he guest appeared on the Transfer Window podcast, which you can find on all the normal platforms. And listening to Luis Campos speak about how you identify players, speak to players on the training pitch, looking at their demeanor, the way they are on the training ground, how they speak to you, that is all important. And you learn that from experienced players as well. It's important to find that balance. Thank you ever so much again, the Realjanis, who is our super chat king, who says, which signings would you put down purely to Edu? I'm not sure. Even Gabriel and Raul was involved in. I mean, I look at Thomas Partey as one of the most, I think it's going to be a transformative signing for us going forward in the years that he's at the club, a big turning point. Martin Erdegaard as well was a great piece of business in January, and we had no money to spend, and yet we got him in as well. So those are the ones that I put down to him as really positive. And I mean, Gabriel is certainly, whilst Raul was involved in some of the negotiations, Edu was very much still involved with that transfer. TJ Cummings says, any news on our hunt for a Tierney backup left back? Absolutely none, mate. Absolutely nothing so much. Antonio Banks, how do you rate Chris Wheatley's latest comment about Luis Campos? Is that in regards to the fact that we've distanced ourselves to him? If it is, I mean, yeah, people get stuff wrong. It's just the way that it works. I wrote about it in a piece the other day about trying to weed out ITKs and stuff like that. It's just part of the business, unfortunately. But I haven't seen his most recent tweet, unless that is indeed what you are talking about. Let's have a quick look. Yeah, so no mention of basically they distanced themselves. It's interesting they haven't put a specific tweet out, and it was just in a reply. It says no, because it clearly said in the article that Edu's job wasn't under threat regardless. Yeah, defending the article that was previously wrote, which turns out to be wrong. But they've distanced themselves apparently from that. So that's what we know about it in this situation. Dan Roberts says, Tom, who do you think we will replace Trent Alexander-Arnold in the England squad? Maybe James Ward-Prowse. Yeah, I'd be surprised if he picked another right back. I would be very surprised, but you never know. It might be James Ward-Prowse. It might be Lingard. We'll have to wait and see. Social says, is Sayad staying now? Kolasinac, of course. We're going to talk a lot about this on tomorrow's transfer update show, but no, we don't know yet. We absolutely don't. Let's have a look. Oh, we've got trolls in the chat today. Oh, dearie me. What is it? It's Thursday. It's a Thursday evening and we're trolling. Wow, people need to get a life. Azraf says, Edu is the Nuno Santos when it comes to transfers. I don't even know what that means. Obi, I've missed your comment. Where is it? Obi says, it's also about having a manager that gives talent and performance a fair chance over experience. Very true. And hopefully Arteta is going to learn from those mistakes. But history tells us that's not exactly the case of what we've come to expect. Anyway, that's probably where we're going to wrap things up, guys. So thank you ever so much, people, for tuning in. Much appreciate the support, as always. We've pumped out 3 shows for you today. So if you could drop a like on the video and share, the associated tweets on our Twitter account at the Gooner Talk TV. It'd be much, much appreciated. I'll be back with you guys tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. to update you with all of the latest Arsenal transfer information, including more updates on Luis Campos, Sead Kolasinac, all the rest, Onana, Buendia, and we'll get all the latest info for you guys on them tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. See you again very, very soon, guys, and as always, up the Arsenal.